Well, good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a great weekend. I have a really exciting topic today. I kind of heard this on the news, and it got me to thinking about this. So I want to talk about three things: supercomputers, flat Earth, and the COVID-19. So I'll start off with computers. So there is this measure of performance that has to do with the speed that your graphics or that your floating point processor runs at. Okay, floating point processor. This floating point processor does things like adding two numbers, dividing two numbers. It does the floating point number calculations. So your computer, if it's a modern computer, uses or processes about 180 gigaflops per second. And I'm sure you're saying, what on earth is a flop? Now, flops are floating point FL operations per second. So FLO per second, flops. So, like I said, your computer, whether it's a laptop or a desktop or whatever, does about 180 floating point operations per second. Okay. Now this is different than reading the disk and getting data out of a database. Some of you may have these giant servers that are made to collect data or store data, and those are totally different than this measure. So this measure is 180 gigaflops per second. Now a supercomputer, I'm looking at the one at Argonne particularly today. Argonne Laboratories has a supercomputer that is 4 petaflops. So 4 petaflops, in case you're wondering, is equivalent to 4 million gigaflops. Okay, so considerably, just astronomically faster than your PC. In fact, I read a statistic that said one of Argonne's algorithms that runs takes about 50 hours to run. If you ran this on your PC, it would take about 20 years. So imagine, you have something you need to run and it takes 20 years to get an answer. And so that's the purpose for these supercomputers that do these incredibly high-speed floating point operations. So we have two of these things. We have the supercomputer and its floating point operations. So what is this used for? At Argonne National Laboratories, it's used for weather prediction. Okay, so what they do is they take weather information, meteorological information from all around the world, and they accumulate that and do operations on that to calculate what the weather might be next week. And you've got to admit that this weather prediction has become very accurate. It's amazing to me how the weatherman can, talk about weather for 3 or 4 days from now and get it so close to right. And that's the reason, is because they are able to predict this weather. So that's the purpose of having this supercomputer that predicts, that analyzes weather patterns, meteorological, temperature, wind, whatever. And so you can imagine worldwide how much data comes in, how much, trillions of bytes of information, right? And so all this information has to be processed to do this weather prediction. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you now is that this one thing kills flat Earth dead. They are using data from around the Earth, a spherical Earth, and no, they didn't make assumption that it's spherical. Their measurements come in, and the measurements can only work on a spherical Earth because of the way things come together at different points on the Earth. Now, if the Earth were flat, a flat motionless disk, what you're going to have is your wind patterns, temperatures are not going to be the continuous flow that you get on the globe. They're going to be different at different points. They're not going to be as easily predictable. You're going to have a big problem at the edge. For computer simulations, for computer work like this edge is called boundary conditions. And in order to work with data at the edge, it's completely different algorithm, because you have to take into account the fact that on one side of the ice wall it's one thing, on the other side it's another thing. So you have these boundary conditions. I promise you that this is just a death knell for flat Earth. So then the last thing I wanted to talk about is this COVID-19. And what I found, I heard this on the news, is that the Argonne Laboratory found that they can use their algorithms for predicting weather to predict the movement of the COVID virus around the world. I just think this is fascinating. It's amazing that the Argonne Laboratory can do this kind of work and try and predict the movements and the growth or death of the coronavirus. So as we vaccinate, as we put in these predictive things like masks and social distancing and so forth, we find that this COVID virus is moving back, is becoming less and less. So I just thought it was fascinating, and I thought I would share it with you this week. That's all I had for today. I hope you have a great week. Let me know what's going on with you and the COVID and different things. Let me know what you think about supercomputers and all those petaflops. I'd like to hear from everybody. So do that for me. And you might also want to subscribe and hit the like button. I do mostly stuff like this if you look at my previous videos. So hang in there with me and let's study this together.